Welcome back to Electrified Review's Top 10 Fat Tire E-Bikes of 2023. My name is Mitch, this is Tyson, and today we're going to be putting them to the test. Today we'll be taking 10 very different Fat Tire e-bikes through a variety of absurd tests to see which one of these e-bikes is fit to call Best Fat Tire E-Bike of 2023. We'll be testing them on comfort, maneuverability, hill climbability, braking, and finally, we'll be pulling twice the advertised weight of a small trailer down a lonely stretch of road. And why are we doing this, you ask? Well, that's a question we are still asking ourselves. So strap in, grab some popcorn, and watch us put these 10 competitors to the test. Before we get to the fun stuff, let's take a moment and meet today's competitors. The Ebike Sir has a 750-watt motor, a 48-volt, 15-amp-hour battery, hydraulic brakes, and is currently priced at $1,900. The Magnum Ranger 2.0 has a 750-watt motor, a 48-volt, 20-amp-hour battery, hydraulic brakes, and is currently priced at $2,600. The Model J from Electric Bike Company has a 750-watt motor, dual 48-volt, 24-amp-hour batteries, hydraulic brakes, and a starting price of just $1,300. The all-wheel drive S from Pedal Electric has dual 1,000-watt motors, a 48-volt, 25-amp-hour battery, hydraulic brakes, and is currently priced at $3,400. The Surface 604 Bore Explorer has a 500-watt motor, 48-volt, 14-amp-hour battery, hydraulic brakes, and is currently priced at $2,700. The Gemini from Vituvia has a 1,000-watt motor, a 52-volt, 21-amp-hour battery, hydraulic brakes, and is currently priced at $2,400. The Punisher Mark III from Kraken Adventure Bikes has a 500-watt motor, a 48-volt, 14-amp-hour battery, mechanical brakes, and is currently priced at $1,600. The Mach Wheel Basalt Step-Through has a 750-watt motor, a 48-volt, 19.6-amp-hour battery, hydraulic brakes, and is currently priced at $1,900. The Conductor 4.2 has a 750-watt motor, a 48-volt, 25-amp-hour battery, triple hydraulic brakes, and the new version is currently priced at $3,700. The Cyrusher Ranger has a 750-watt motor, a 52-volt, 20-amp-hour battery, hydraulic brakes, and is currently priced at $2,800. Now, let's get on with our first test.
Alrighty folks, so we are going to do a stability test. We're calling this the water stability test. So on every bike, we're going to mount a plastic water bottle with water onto the handlebars. We're going to have it mounted nice and even, and then we're going to ride over an obstacle course. We've got lots of bumps, some up and down hills going throughout the course, and so at the end of it, we're just going to see how much water we got left in the bottle, and we'll use that to rate the stability of each bike.
The Big Sur was up first and off to a strong start. Lost a bit of water in the first terrain change. The ladder could have been more kind to it too. It lost a bit more in the bumpy straightaway, but the last hill didn't affect it as badly as some of the others. It was the first to try the gauntlet and ended up with 125 millimeters of water remaining. The Magnum Ranger was smooth sailing before the first terrain change, but as soon as it left the pavement, it lost a considerable amount of water on the drop. It looked like a big loss at the ladder, but it didn't do as bad as some of the others. It dominated on the dirt pathway, but towards the end, some of the bumpy areas caused a decent amount of spillage. But it ended up tying with the Big Sur with 125 millimeters of water remaining. The Model J was designed for city streets, and even with the front fork suspension, the terrain change impacted it pretty badly, and so did the ladder. The rest of the course didn't seem to affect it very much, but the last hill sloshed out a bit of water, bringing it home with only 115 milliliters of water remaining. The all-wheel drive S was made for the off-road, so we expected some great things out of it. Unfortunately, the full suspension can't beat physics, which states that a 20-inch wheel has a worse attack angle when compared to larger tires, so it didn't stand a chance on the ladder. It ended up having a little bit of water left over, so we called it 5 milliliters and called it a day. The Bore was another off-road bike, and with the largest tires and assumably the best attack angle, the front forks did not like the terrain change, and we lost the water bottle entirely, leaving it with 0 milliliters left over. The Gemini handled itself well. The terrain change and ladder didn't seem to affect it too badly. It really only lost a few more drops and ended up with a respectable 135 milliliters left over. The Punisher also has 20-inch wheels and wasn't full suspension like the all-wheel drive S, so we were expecting it to do worse. But it pretty much did the same thing and didn't make it past the ladder. 0 milliliters for the Punisher. The Mach Wheel was smooth and steady and only lost a bit of water on the ladder section. It did great for every other part of the course, including the last hill, which had been a challenge for most of the bikes in the competition. In the end, it shot into first place with 145 milliliters of water left over. The Conductor 4.2 had the advantage of being a trike. Trikes are more stable, and the larger 24-inch tire was the only wheel that connected with the ladder, and you also can't turn as fast on a trike, so it had another advantage over the others. In the end, it swept up the lead with a whopping 150 milliliters of water remaining. The Side Rusher Ranger has the advantage of being a full suspension with some pretty good travel. It almost lost no water on the ladder, which was very impressive. A few drops in the straightaway, but it wasn't until the last hill that it lost a decent chunk of the water remaining. In the end, it blew away the competition with a staggering 190 milliliters of water remaining. After Tyson got to enjoy the only solace under this hot Texas sun, how was that scoreboard looking? Time to go to the next test. All right, guys, now we're gonna be doing the maneuverability test. We've got 8 cones spaced 15 feet apart. We're gonna be doing 2 rounds. The first one, easy mode. We're gonna be going at 10 miles per hour. The second one is gonna be expert mode. We're gonna be going at 20 miles per hour. And if you don't hit any cones, you get a perfect score. And as you hit cones, well, you know, you lose points as far as that goes. So let's jump into it. The Big Sur lives up to its name and has large tires, and large tires aren't known for their maneuverability. It handled like a rock star, blazing through the course at both 10 miles per hour and 20 miles per hour. It didn't hit a single cone and took home a perfect score. All boat jokes aside, the Magnum Ranger rose up to the challenge and breezed through the slalom course like it wintered in Vail. One of the more surprising outcomes so far, and earned itself 6 points. The Model J is the only 3-inch tire in the field, and we knew going into it that it would most likely have an advantage over the fatter competitors. It did not disappoint, swerving all around 8 cones on both the 10-mile-an-hour attempt and the 20-mile-per-hour attempt. It was so maneuverable that it probably could have aced the course at 30 miles per hour. But we didn't try that. The all-wheel drive S needs to be nimble. The 20-inch tires and speeds capable mean it would need to have excellent handling, and it did. It nicked on one of the cones, but that was most likely user error, but hey, we gotta be fair. The Boar should have had the hardest time with the course, but it did surprisingly well. At 10 miles per hour, it made it through all the cones, but when we hit 20 miles per hour, it smashed one, and that's mainly because those 4.8-inch tires are just so massive, it's hard to have awareness of just how far they stick out. But from a feel perspective, it almost felt as nimble as the Model J, which was super impressive. The Gemini was not a favorite going into it for 2 reasons. 1, big tires. And 2, it has a larger rake angle, meaning that it's better for going down hills and overall stability, but it does take away a bit of the nimbleness. Ultimately, it hit 2 cones at 20 miles per hour, so we had to deduct 2 points.
Hey, let's go! Yeah! Oh, I got you.
The Punisher was up next, and with its smaller wheels, it was sure to do well here. However, it did not hit the required 20 miles per hour, and while it didn't hit any cones in either run, we deducted a point to keep the competition fair. If you're fine going 18 miles per hour, then this thing is as nimble as a goat. The mock wheel was ready to go and was extremely easy to control. It didn't hit cones in either run and aced the course, as far as we're concerned. The trike didn't fare too well, but we could have guessed as much. Trikes are good for cornering at slow speeds, and we didn't do that here. To be fair, this is not how you would turn with the trike, and the Conductor 4.2 is a very stable trike, but if you had to go through a course like this, I suggest you find a way around it. The trike hit every single cone after the first one, and I was crying from laughing. It was hilarious, but also, didn't do great on this test. The Ranger was leading the pack at this point, so we were curious if it could maintain its lead. It did, with flying colors. It was probably the most comfortable bike to ride in the field and maneuvered around the cones effortlessly. I mean, I put in some effort, of course, but the bike seemed to be doing most of the heavy lifting. No cones hit here. After all the bikes did some weaving, let's see where we stand. Now, let's head to the next test. Time to go to the next test.
Tell us a little bit about today.
Today, what can I say? It's too hot, I tell you what. But we out here. We gotta get to the bottom of this, see which is the best bike. So, doing the Lord's work.
The idea here is pretty simple. Coast down the hill, hit the throttle when you cross the cones. The Big Sur was first up, and while it struggled a bit towards the end, it pulled off a win and a perfect 6 points added to its total score. The Magnum Ranger started out strong but appeared to hit a wall towards the end. Then Tyson hit the ground, and we all laughed. It was a good time. 5 points to the Magnum. The Model J is one of those slow burns. Not a ton of low-end torque, but it made it just as far as the Magnum, and Tyson landed about in the same patch of grass. 5 points. I guess nobody told the all-wheel drive S that there was a hill on the other side because it almost seemed to continually accelerate up the hill. We aren't in the habit of giving out bonus points, but it was awfully tempting with this strong performance. 6 points. The boar fared very well, and although it didn't completely make it up to the other side, Tyson did smash the cone, and it edged out over the other 5-pointers so far, so 5.5 points to the boar.
Hey, you hit it!
The Gemini is one of those bikes that reaches top speed pretty quickly and maintains it really well. It did slow down a bit more than the all-wheel drive S, but in the end, made it out without dumping Tyson in the weeds. The Punisher's motor peaks right about where most of the other motors start, so we weren't expecting much. It gave a valiant effort, but only racked up 4.5 hill points. The Mach wheel has a decent amount of torque, so it kind of surprised me it didn't end up going a distance here. Even with Tyson trying to hop it up the last few feet, it fell short of a sweet 6 points and settled for an almost a sweet 5 points. Now, I'll explain the brake situation on the Conductor 4.2 in the next test, but just so you know, this is my personal trike, and I'm aware the brakes need to be bled, so take this sliding back with a grain of salt. When I got it, it would have stuck to the side of a building. These brakes were so good. We'll base the points on where it stopped on the incline and give it a well-deserved 4 points. The Ranger was up next. The suspension, top-notch, but how does the low-end torque fare on a serious incline? Well, it struggled a little bit, but made it over the hump and rode on to 6 fat points. After all the bikes had gone up the hill, or tried their best to, let's see how the competition is stacking up. What's that? Oh, that's the next test. All right, guys, so our first test is going to be a braking test. There's gonna be 3 rounds. When you brake, you're not supposed to lock out the tires. You actually are supposed to stop less quickly that way. So the first 2, we're gonna be stopping as quick as we can, as safe as we can, without locking out the tires. But people tend to just hammer on the brakes when they get into an emergency situation. So the 3rd one, we're gonna hit the cone and just lock it out. So let's see how they all fare. First up is the Big Sur, putting in a respectable 25 feet on the first attempt, 27 feet on the second, and when we locked the brakes out, it stopped right at 22 feet. Next, we have the Magnum Ranger. Nearing the 30-foot mark, she slid in just under at 29 feet on the first attempt. The second one was better, stopping at 26 feet. When we locked those tires out, she really responded, stopping just 1 foot shy of the Big Sur at 23 feet. Next, we tested the Model J. On the first attempt, we saw our first sub-20-footer of the day at 19 feet. The second attempt was an incredible 21 feet, and when we really hammered on those Dorado brakes, she came to a screeching halt at 18 feet on the 3rd attempt. Next, we checked the all-wheel drive S from pedal. Now, you can tell we didn't have to go very far to get it up to 20 miles per hour, and when we reached the cone, she put up some amazing numbers of 21 feet on the first attempt, 20 feet on the second attempt, and 21 on the third. Consistency is key, and the all-wheel drive slid into second place for the time being. Then came the off-road monster, the Boar Explorer. The first go saw 29 feet, the second 27, and when we mashed the brakes down, it shortened up to just 24 feet. Then the twin flame itself, the Gemini. Started out strong with 19 feet, lost a little ground with a fairly long 26 feet, but shocked us all with the shortest distance on the 3rd attempt at just 17 feet. The Punisher was next, and before we show you the footage, we must note that the Punisher is only capable of reaching speeds of 18 miles per hour the way that it arrived to us. So we did some quick maths, and we'll only share the estimated stopping distance as if it were going 20 miles per hour, like the rest of the bikes. Just know that in reality, it was shorter than that. The first attempt was 28 feet, the second 29 feet, and the third was the average stopping distance of this whole competition, which was 25 feet. The ever-popular Mach wheel was next. It put up some impressive numbers, with the first attempt being 25 feet, the second, another 25 feet, and the skid round stopped a bit shorter at 21 feet. As promised, there's a caveat here. The OWOW Cycles is my personal trike, and the rear brakes need to be bled. I know that. When I first got it a year ago, the brakes were great, and I could easily skid the tires, and the stopping power was impressive for a trike. So just let this be a good lesson as to why it's important to keep up with your bike maintenance. The first attempt was the longest distance of them all at 34 feet, the second was just above average at 27 feet, and the third one was also more than 30 feet, stopping at 33 feet. So take care of your brakes, folks. Then it was the Cyrusher Ranger's turn. When we controlled the stop, we had 26 feet, and then repeated another 26 feet. When we smashed down the brakes, we stopped at barely over 20 feet, just at 22 feet. After all the bikes had completed testing, this is how they stacked up after the braking test. Now, let's head to the next test.
Alrighty folks, now we are doing a torque pulling test. So we're gonna be running this over a predefined distance is right about 200 yards. We're just gonna be laying on the throttle, seeing how long it takes us to go that distance, and we found some nice precious cargo to lug along with us. So let's take it away. Hello?
Nice. Okay.
Okay, now it's working.
For anyone who's wondering, no, this trailer is not rated to pull 220 pounds at 20 miles per hour. It's a testament to the build quality over at Burley. That's our short review of the Double B. Back to the competition. Up first was the Big Sur, and started out, seemed like it wasn't going to do too well, but after the first 15 feet or so, started to pick up speed at a good gait. It finished hauling its cargo with a respectable time of 22.21 seconds. Similar to the Big Sur, the Magnum Ranger also got off to a slow start. It only got up to 17 miles per hour and came in just behind the Big Sur with a time of 24.05 seconds. So far in this competition, the Model J seemed to have one of the lower torques, and it seemed to be proven true again here when it crossed the finish line in 26.28 seconds. It seemed it started to pick up some speed right when we were crossing the finish line. If only the course was another 100 yards long, it might have placed a little bit better. The all-wheel drive S had a larger axle and was actually too large for the trailer attachment. We decided to just use the safety strap to affix it to the frame, and this was the most terrifying thing I did the whole day. It took off as if I wasn't being drugged behind it, reaching a top speed of 30 miles per hour before we crossed in a mind-numbing time of 15.91 seconds. The Boar had a bit more low-end torque, and though it got off to a slow start, it held its own across the finish line with a respectable time of 22.96 seconds. Even though the Gemini is a bit of a speed demon, it fared pretty similarly to the other competitors. It picked up speed towards the end, and it edged into second place with a time of 22.01 seconds. The Punisher was ready, but we wondered if we'd even move off the line.
Thought it wasn't gonna start for a second there.
We did, and although it ended up being the slowest, held its own and got me safely across the goal line with a time of 27.38 seconds. The mock wheel sputtered a bit out of the gate, but immediately went to work, picking up speed and getting us there with a decent time of 23.15 seconds. It crossed only 0.19 seconds from the Surface 604 Boar. The trike had a bit of an advantage here because we couldn't actually attach the cart anywhere. Luckily for us, it has a built-in bench seat for me to sit on. I pulled the trailer for the integrity of the competition, and we crossed the finish line at 24.05 seconds, a dead tie with the Magnum Ranger. Then the other Ranger had its chance to pull some cargo. It took off pretty quickly and continued to accelerate. It ran through the endpoint in a time of 21.56 seconds, only 0.05 seconds ahead of the Gemini. After all the bikes had tried their best, these were the results. We spilled some water, crushed some cones, ate some grass, did a little skidding, and a lot of pulling. There could only be one winner, and after we compiled all the scores, here is how the competition stacked up. In first place, we have the Side Rusher Ranger. In joint second, we have the Pedal All-Wheel Drive S and the Vituvia Gemini. In joint third, we have the I'm a Big Sur and the Mock Wheel Basalt. In fourth place, the Electric Bike Company Model J. In fifth place, the Magnum Ranger. In sixth place, the Boar Explorer from Surface 604. In seventh, the Conductor 4.2 from Oh Wow Cycles. In eighth place is the Punisher Mark III from Kraken Adventure Bikes. In the end, all the bikes did really well, and these are not the typical situations you would encounter on any of these e-bikes. We designed this competition to have fun, and while we all have our favorites, and they're all different, if you can believe it, these results in no way reflect the brands that send these bikes in, nor do they reflect the quality of the bikes, as most e-bikes are good for their intended use cases. Should a trike attempt a cone slalom at 20 miles per hour? No. Should a small folder pull a total of 485 pounds at speed? Of course not. Should you ride around with an open container? Well, that's between you and your local government. As always, links to all the brands featured here in today's video will be down in the description below. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.